The 60s and 70s were a time for all things protest, including the rights of the disabled. While Section 504 was passed in 1973, the Americans with Disabilities Act, ordered under Executive Order 13163, was only signed into office in 1990. Even ugly laws weren't abolished until 1974, which, considering our modern standards, is appalling. At the time, people like Richard Pimelt, a deaf Vietnam veteran, Ed Roberts, and John Hessler, polio survivors attending UC Berkeley, advocated for disabled rights, but this did not guarantee no discrimination in all walks of life. On May 9, 1989, Senators Harkin and Durenberger proposed the ADA to Congress with the backings of organizations such as the Citizens with Disabilities, the LCRR, NARC, note some of this terminology is outdated, ADAPT, CIL, and etc. Protests organized by Dr. I. King Jordan on the steps of Washington lasted over a week. With the Capitol crawl, the renouncement of mobility aids in favor of crawling, pressured the president of the time, George H.W. Bush, to sign the bill into immediate effect.
Rights for disabilities is a huge issue of concern. They are still, today, not given equal opportunities. Disability rights are basic human rights, not special rights. As said in the article of a Declaration of Equality about Judy Heumann, she said that it is not people with disabilities who need change, but the people around them that do. These people with disabilities have been and still today are denied equal opportunities socially, politically, educationally, and physically. These people with disabilities in the 70s were often put into institutions where abuse was very common. Along with that, out of our whole population of the US, 61 million are disabled, making them the largest minority in America, which poses an even higher reason why this is a huge issue of concern.
Today, people with disabilities are given opportunities that they weren't able to have in the early 1700s to 1900s. Many of those people have faced barriers of not experiencing civil life. In 1949, an 18-month-old Judy Heumann was diagnosed with a disease that left her whole body paralyzed. Her mom had tried to enroll her in a kindergarten in Brooklyn, but the principal called her a fire hazard as she was in a wheelchair. Given the spread of injustice, the U.S. Department of Justice Civil Rights Division decided to enact an American with Disabilities Act, short form for ADA, on July 26, 1990. ADA was a historic law prohibiting discrimination on the basis of disability in more than 7 million places in the public, including hotels, restaurants, retail stores, theaters, healthcare facilities, parks, and most importantly, the operations of state and local government. Carrie Gray, a senior director at the American Association of People with Disabilities, expresses her gratitude towards this movement by saying, "For a long time, people with disabilities had little to no rights across the United States. So the ADA is a big piece of legislation that ensures that people with disabilities can not only exist in the United States, but can thrive."
The disabled community is still working hard today to create an equal nation. For example, the American Association of People with Disabilities, or the AAPD, has a big movement in making the polls more accessible to disabled people. The Rev Up voting campaign includes building ramps to the polls for those in wheelchairs, creating voting machines with audio features to help the blind, and much more. So far, this campaign has been successful as nearly 62% of Americans with disabilities voted in 2020. This is 6% more than 2016. Another big problem to tackle is the access to employment. Disabled people are still twice as likely as non-disabled people to be unemployed and to live in poverty due to the most jobs not being accessible. Groups like the National Organization of Disabilities, or the NOD, are working to create jobs for disabled Americans and to help make existing jobs more inclusive. Although it's not perfect, the disabled community in America has put a lot of hard work into getting where they are now, but there are still many battles to be won before they can be fully treated equally in this nation.